Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Worth It Then, Worth It Now, an ongoing side project I've been running here on this channel where I look at games 10 plus years or older or thereabouts and I line them up with a sale where possible. And today we're going back to Prototype 2. Oh my goodness, I haven't thought about this for a long time, but it holds a very, very special place in my heart and I'm happy to report that it holds up excellently. I did have some issues launching it, though going into the Steam discussion section, you found out that there was a Nexus mod fix-all that was really easy to install and off you go. Pretty much copy-paste it into the root files and she's booting, no dramas, no problems, no hitches. Can't believe this was published by Activision. A different time, 2012, so 14 years at the time of this recording. But man, some of it feels like yesterday. So as far as the Prototype series goes, I don't actually have a strong affinity for the first one. I don't even know if I played the first one, but I should probably go back and check it out. I have both of them. I picked these both up on the sale over Christmas, actually. Now I've only just gotten around to playing them now. So yeah, huge fan of Prototype 2. The landscape at the time, it was kind of a bit of a pissing match between the two dogs in this genre, if you could call it, this weird mutated superpowers third person open world action thing, and the other one was Infamous, which at the time was right in PlayStation's peak and it was a PlayStation exclusive, and that was the one that drew the most attention. Bit more, what was it, you're playing as Cole and you have a superhero power of like lightning, and it was, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the Infamous games, I played them, I really liked Second Son, but they kind of overshadowed Prototype. So I feel like a lot of people slept on it. Well, myself specifically, I slept on the first one, never actually checked that out. But then we come to the second one, and in honest truth, it holds its own, and I think it flew under a lot of people's radars just because of said rivalry between the two series at the time. So much so, this is my favorite of the whole lot out of both sides of the aisle. So the idea is that you're following on, it is, a direct sequel. The first game has, what was it, Alex Mercer? I think so. Essentially, that's the main character, and you've got these mutated superpowers, and it is a bit of a coloured by numbers setup in, big bad pharmaceutical military complex is testing weapons, and he's kind of getting the blame for it as the escaped good guy, mutated but still maintained his humanity underneath, right? Prototype 2, you're a new character, James Heller, and my god, they tell his intro. In fact, all of the cutscenes in this are just so expertly done, absolutely primo in the genre, in the space. I wish there was more of this. It's very edge cool, right? In fact, this entire game is incredibly edgy, but it plays it so straight-faced that you can't help but love it. So in this one, you're playing as this dude, James Heller, who is a returned serviceman. In fact, the whole intro plays out of him trying to comfort his misso. He's got a wife and a daughter back home, and he's calling from, remote deployment. A few weeks before I'm there. Only a few more days. I'll be there tomorrow. That sort of thing, right? And as this is going on, this new outbreak is happening in Manhattan, and his wife's getting more and more panicked, and he's trying to keep her calm, and as expected, the tragedy strikes that literally the day before you get home, infected people break into his apartment and actually kill his wife and daughter. It's actually quite awful and gruesome, and the way that the cutscenes are played out are so good, man. Like masterclass, top shelf. I'd love to see more of this, even in the indie space as well. They mix live action info dumps with a lot of, harsh, fast cuts, right? They kind of cover up the traditionally corny cheesiness of live action with some really edgy effects. In fact, calling this edgy is a fair estimation, especially when you compare it with something like Infamous that was going for a bit of a comic book, a gritty comic book, modern style, sort of like Heroes, if you remember that TV show. The early interpretation of superheroes in reality, right? And trying to integrate that. That's been a fascination of many forever. This is much more edgy, incredibly edgy. Blood and guts and swearing and death and punchlines, and it's excellent, right? I think The fact that it does not even flinch, it does not shy away from any of its edge cool, makes it so much better. But yeah, the way that a lot of the story is told to you is through these live action, edgy cutscenes that are very quick, very short, and very choppy, and very well done. And then you couple that with the thematic, desaturized down to black and white theme that they like to do in certain cutscenes, or even like when you're on low health, and then you have red accents on your clothes and in the world and that sort of thing. And it's just a really inspired art direction and adds a lot to it. But the game on its own right stands well, right? It is very much like, oh my God, I'm dating myself, like Ultimate Hulk or whatever. You can run straight up the side off buildings. You start with a pretty good mobility set. Like you can glide and jump as well, so like do a double jump glide, can get quite a bit of value and mobility. You're very powered. In fact, the whole thing is a power fantasy. You build up mutations, and that's the idea, is you try to build up your powers to fight the big bad. You're kind of uneasy allies with Mercer from the first game. As he explains it, he's been set up by this pharmaceutical company that's basically just doing human experiments on a mass city-wide scale. It's all just a bioweapons test for their, bioweapon for their new strain of the virus. But after you get infected and you break out and you kind of team up with old mate, you're set loose on the map and start meeting out the story a little bit. It's so good. It's coming back to me, man. Like, your first ally that you team up with is the father of your local parish, and it turns out he's been running a bit of an underground, keeping tabs on Blackwatch, which is the military organization that is essentially oppressing everyone in the city, and he's basically Batgirl Oracle in the chair, giving you directions. And the main character, Heller, is so charismatic. I love him. One of my favorite scenes in video games I just played doing this B-roll, where you sneak into a base, because that's one of the mechanics. Again, watching this, you can see, okay, cool, you're beating them up, you've got some pretty cool beast mode, sharp arms, big knife arms and that sort of stuff. And I mean, that's all good and fun. It's great wish fulfillment. In fact, you can do heavy attacks by holding the button, but it pushes it into a bullet time, and you kind of almost have a cinematic pace control. That is what I was thinking to myself. Like, you can just beat them up, but if you want to do this heavy attack, you can force the game into slow-mo with that attack, as opposed to it being like a set-piece finisher in most games. There's something to be said there. Maybe that's untapped potential in gaming, allowing a little bit of cinematic pacing afforded to the controls of the player. Anyway, it works well, and you can, sort of soft RP your slow motion heavy attacks. But I've got off track. What I was getting at is the unique parts of this game are things like you're able to consume anyone, right? Generally you avoid civilians, but bad guys, specifically soldiers and officers and lab workers with certain clearances, and you can swap between your normal mode and costumed mode. And there is an evasion, it's not quite 5-star GTA level, but it's still there, and it's still a part of the loop that you got to get away, hide around a corner, and then switch appearances so that you can shake them off. And then you couple that in with the fact that you can use that to infiltrate bases and unlock, information from terminals or access codes. It's all really novel. And look, I'm getting away with the tangent I started on. My favorite thing is when you have to interface with the computer, and to get there, you have to sneak into this facility, and that's why I went back and explained the mechanics. So yeah, I've gone and I've hijacked and consumed some dudes and stolen their identity and snuck in, and old mate's got to lock into a computer, and he has a full-on boomer meltdown. It's like, what is this button? What's the alt button? I don't have a fucking alt button. Well, I've got a squiggly key and a triangle, and it's like, don't forget to log out. Fuck you, I'm not logging out of anything. Like, it's hilarious. It was at the time, it still is. I think he's a great character. For someone that is, that cookie cutter, my family died and I'm on a revenge quest kind of thing, I think he's well-rounded and brings a lot to the role. One of the other novelties actually is the pulse that you can do, sort of like a sonar thing. So when you're hunting down a specific person, which is a lot of the narrative of this game, is go hunt down this dude, because when you consume him, you'll be able to see their memories, at least the ones that suit the story, and just use that breadcrumb trail to push the story along. Never mind how you know some of those individuals are the ones that need to be possessed. Don't overthink it too much. It's just a cool mechanic, right? A great way to get those little punchy cutscenes that I'm talking about in with, different casts of actors. And quite often, it'll be some random lieutenant or soldier that overheard a conversation from the big bad as he was passing by, and the cutscene plays out like that, sneaking a little glance behind the curtain. But in order to find these guys, you have to use like a sonar pulse thing, which is really novel and cool. You send out a pulse and they repeat the pulse back at you, and the return path is visible. You can see which way the pulse came from, and you use that to triangulate their location, without having to pull up an overworld map or look at a GPS or anything like that. It's a layer inside the game. Incredibly clever. Tragic that we haven't really seen it since. Anyway, Prototype 2. It's an absolute romp. I'm so glad to go back to it. I'm glad it ran after I did that fix so well. It's very gritty and edgy and dark, but I think it was peak, actually. Getting a lot of that from a lot of these games that I'm going back to. I don't think we realize how good we had it 10 years ago, because this was, a double A game. Well, it wasn't double A because, the lines between double A and triple A didn't really exist so clearly then. It's an Activision published project, right? That's triple A any day of the week. However, it was very much a B game. If you had extra splash around money left over after you'd bought whatever X AAA game was at the time, maybe you'd pick up Prototype. That's how it was. And yet this game absolutely smashes a lot of what you're getting these days at the highest echelon. I love this game so much. I'll have to go back and check out the first one. Maybe I'll feature it on the channel as well, but I'm less familiar. So yeah, pick them up. Pick them both up. They'll both be on sale, surely. This won't be the only one. If you're like me, you can just go in blind to Prototype 2. I'm sure you'll get the same value I got. One of my favorite games ever, and I don't really know much about the first one. Or you could start at the first one and probably fill in the gaps a little bit. One of my goofy little favorite games, and I'm happy to use this project as an opportunity to go back and check it out. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.